1 year after Erika Jayne's life blew up at Kyle's La Quinta home, the entire group with newbie Diana, sans Kathy Hilton, are back in La Quinta and in some ways are even more broken than ever before post-Dorit robbery. But La Quinta seems to be this oasis of truth for this group. Thank you for joining me, Nick Zangl, on this episode 3 of season 12 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills recap and react from all around the globe. You are most likely tuning in from one of the 43 countries on 6 different continents that have been tuning into the channel and these recaps in particular. But like always, make sure to comment along wherever you are tuning in from, including the premiere live chat on YouTube or the main comment section on YouTube, Rumble, or your favorite podcasting platform if you are a member of the replay audience. But with that said, let us jump right into the recap. We start at Crystal's house for a meeting with the group sans Sutton and Diana before their trip in a few days to Kyle's La Quinta house. Now, after Kyle asks how Sister Kathy's appearance with Garcelle on her talk show The Real went, and a cheers to something just being there, I guess, Garcelle is filled in with the rest of the group on why Sutton is not present. Now, Sutton is apparently out of town to work on her cashmere line, but Kyle says she's actually not exactly sure that is the reason. 2 seconds into the episode, I already had a lot of questions. It seemed as if no one really knew Sutton wasn't attending, but I would think her friend Garcelle would know she wasn't coming. Or maybe this was revenge for the meeting Sutton called last season after La Quinta here without Erika. And this whole reason for meetings and who was and wasn't invited will come up a little bit later. And at the end, I will share a never before seen scene and how it impacted the consistency in stories regarding a few key cast members. So make sure to stay till the end to hear how it all plays into all this. But Kyle then sets up the La Quinta trip purpose, which is to open her new store, Kyle X Shahida, in the desert, followed by Dorit conveniently getting up to use the ladies' room so Kyle can bring up a voicemail Dorit left for her that morning, very emotional and clearly not doing well. Now, when Kyle asked if anyone had heard the voicemail, at first I was like, no, Kyle, because I thought she sent the voicemail to you, unless it was shared with Kyle by production, or maybe Kyle shared with some of the girls and didn't know if it had been relayed to everyone else. Also, I was a little confused at who the voicemail was from at first because there was such a quick switch from talking about Sutton to then talking about Dorit. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, Rinna and Erika were being a little too sympathetic for it to be Sutton. So Dorit returns to Garcelle asking how she's doing. And Dorit says the trauma comes in waves of anxiety, sometimes escalating to a full-on panic attack she is having trouble managing. Even a Xanax doesn't help. In fact, she thinks it may be making her anxiety worse at times. Well, Kyle then, again, is priming everyone for Sutton being in La Quinta, with them bringing up her problem with Sutton's reaction to the robbery, where everyone is now aware of the "I'm sorry I didn't have a gun pointed at my head" comment from Sutton, which Kyle conveniently continues to reference out of context from a bigger conversation. After they learn about this, Erika seems taken back by hearing that Sutton said this comment, and Dorit says, well, it was a tad bit too insensitive, but Sutton's friend Garcelle stands up for her, as a good friend would do, saying, let's wait to have this conversation and this discussion until Sutton is present to defend herself. And Dorit, I think, makes a logical point saying that she doesn't really want to continue to bring this up, and anyone else can bring it up, because she is still very sensitive to the situation. And to my shock, this is where the scene ends, and it appears everyone in the group agrees to bring this up when Sutton is present, which I was shocked by. So this was very smart of Garcelle to squash this back talking behind your back, whatever you want to call it, and to get ahead of the drama. It looks like she and Sutton went into this season with a game plan, even maybe with Crystal too, which normally I wouldn't like, but it looks like they learned their lesson last year. And if it means holding these other women who are known to be kind of mean bullies, nasty, harsh, kind of a clique gang, whatever you want to call it, mean girls, if it means holding them accountable and playing offense against them, keeping them on the defense, then I'm here for it. But I think Kyle really believes she is channeling her inner Lisa Vanderpump in this season in particular, trying to play chess, but she, to me, is failing miserably as she is playing too obvious of a game when you're playing the LVP chess game, you can't be front and center in the game all the time. And Kyle, I think, is too used to being in the spotlight and being the star to take this note. But you can't openly try to manipulate the entire group in front of everyone in the group. All right, Kyle is now leaving for Palm Springs with her two troublemaking dogs in tow after checking in with her store designer partner in the car. We also get a very brief history of her three failed stores in years past, and Kyle then asking her phone for the nearest Jack in the Box, which happens to be on Ukaipa Boulevard, which I will have to check that Jack in the Box out if I'm ever in that area just to kind of feel like a nostalgic place or like a sightseeing, whatever. I will point out this little comment here is a little bit of an Easter egg, but I'll get to that in a moment. But she arrives to La Quinta at their home to then FaceTime Mauricio, letting him know and us know that Dorit was supposed to travel with Kyle to La Quinta, but was having a rough morning, so Dorit is coming a little bit later. Okay, so first, I get that trauma isn't a one size fits all, but I would think that Dorit would actually want to travel with Kyle, her friend, and her dogs, maybe as a way of not feeling alone and feeling a little more safe. But also, if she was wanting to stay home with her family or afraid to leave them, why now and not right after the robbery when she had no problem leaving the kids at her home to go meet Kyle and her friends at Kyle's house? But on a lighter note, the Jack in the Box Easter egg I just referred to, I think was kind of a nod to Kathy Hilton bringing Del Taco to the group on last season's trip to the La Quinta house. And you may or may not know that Del Taco was just bought or is currently being bought by Jack in the Box. This could be a planned little nugget here, or maybe I'm just reaching really far on this coincidence. Meanwhile, Garcelle is packing with her assistant Taz, reminding us a lot has changed in the years since the last La Quinta trip, which I think is an understatement. But this time, Garcelle confirms she is staying in the house. Remember last year, she used the COVID excuse to go to the hotel. But Erika is then seen with Mikey Minden prepping outfits for La Quinta, where Erika confesses she would normally resell her clothes, then buy new things with the proceeds, but says she isn't able to do so right now because of the bankruptcy trustees pausing this activity. So there were allegations at one point that she was violating that order to not sell things, but I believe those were pre-litigation activity they were referring to. Maybe this was Erika doing damage control, trying to give the impression the pre-litigation selling of clothes was normal, but it does confirm they weren't as rich as they appeared if you didn't keep everything that you bought. I can't imagine the bankruptcy trustee would be mad at you selling your clothes if it meant you were paying back the money we now know is stolen from the victims. Just saying, but welcome, Erika, to the real world of wearing clothes more than once. I know it's a big sacrifice for you, but Kelly Dodd and Rick Leventhal also picked up on this, being a little bit crazy that she is still with the glam team on camera when she is underwater legally and financially. They went a little further to say that she's bad with her money. Obviously, I don't know her personal finances. I can only go off of what has been reported. The rest of the girls, including Diana, then meet Erika at her rental before their road trip. The Erika and Garcelle and Lisa car then stop for a potty break and food at In-N-Out, which is very relatable. I do the same thing, and all their food looked really good. But the Crystal and Diana car, however, appeared to pack their own snacks, including some homemade bread from Diana. But as they are passing the Palm Springs outlets, we get more insight into how wealthy Diana really is when Crystal asks Diana if she's ever been. And Diana is like, I don't really know what an outlet is or even go to stores anymore because the stores come to me and I just send back what I don't like. Which at this point, I'm thinking they just brought Diana on the cast to make everyone else seem more relatable after last year's kind of shit show of people and backlash against the cast and Andy and the network for the Erika situation. But we will see later that that whole thing of trying to bring Diana in to make the others seem more relatable might actually be backfiring if that was even part of the plan. We now get confirmation that Dorit has arrived to Kyle's, I guess, via teleportation because we didn't really see the travel there. But we learn also that Diana, Crystal, and Sutton are the three staying at the hotel, which apparently is the hotel that The Bachelor and Bachelorette filmed in during the quarantine seasons. Sutton arrives from her trip as well from Texas. Meanwhile, Dorit tells Garcelle she bought the outfit she is wearing at Kyle's store after arriving the day before, sharing that her love for getting ready has faded recently since the robbery, which I agree with Garcelle on this, that it is kind of sad to see someone's light dim a little bit. To further prove how upper class Diana truly is, she arrives to her room with her glam team already there set up for her, where Diana confesses she does this also for security and comfort reasons. One of Diana's entourage members also says that Diana does not like facing away from the door and that they check the windows and the doors and the views from in and outside the windows for safety reasons. And I actually think this is really fascinating, and the other women maybe could learn a few things from her, even though I am not on Diana's level of wealth or connection. I actually do some of these things most of the time in my real life when I'm kind of out and about or even at home, just to kind of generally be aware of any vulnerabilities or places threats could come from, just to kind of ease my mind a little bit. So although it seems like something only important people would do, I actually think it is kind of relatable and also a good learning moment for all of us. But before Kyle's store opening, Crystal meets up with Sutton in her room to talk about the meeting that she had with the others at her house we saw earlier, sharing she wants to tell Sutton in private what happened to further improve their friendship on the grounds of transparency and honesty. Now, Crystal goes on to say Kyle made it sound like you said something insensitive, repeating verbatim what Sutton said, and of course, Sutton owns up to it, explaining, as she did last week, about her past trauma with similar events and her father, further confessing she can still hear her mom yelling for her father to get the gun to defend themselves against an intruder standing in front of Sutton's door, while also emotionally and really shaken, talking about even the conversations that the girls have been having recently about introducing guns into their own households to defend themselves, where Crystal and Sutton seem to think this will not come up with the group tonight because Dorit is still so fragile. But of course, those are famous last words. Nothing ever doesn't come up that they tell us that they don't want to come up. I think it was actually very mature for Crystal to relay this information to Sutton, knowing Garcelle wants to squash this ASAP with the entire group. And I think Crystal is also getting ahead of her being blamed for this kind of back talking behind back at her house, considering she hosted the meeting. And I'm sure the other girls would have no problem throwing Crystal under the bus, saying, well, you had the meeting, so you're not innocent. We are finally at the Kyle x Shahida store opening, with Kyle being her normal, frantic, last-minute party prep self. We see Teddi Mellencamp here with her extra TV cue cards for her correspondent gig, which was the interviews she did there made headlines in the Bravo blogosphere when she seemingly brought Dana Wilkie, former Beverly Hills friend of, into her questioning of Dorit fresh off the robbery, as almost subtle shade for Dana and others investigating the validity of the robbery, even though Dana has debunked the fake part of the robbery and a lot of the claims people have made. But Teddi tried, I guess, grouping everyone with questions into the Dana Wilkies of the world because she doesn't like Dana for some reason. This was more of the off-camera storyline that they cut out of the show for Teddi, which we touched on in episode 1, and Dana also did laugh at this in her show as well for this episode. But even Teddi's co-host on the Two T's in a Pod podcast, Tamara Judge, kind of shaded Teddi, saying, oh, I didn't even see you at Kyle's event on camera during their recap, which was kind of funny. But I guess Teddi just kind of, it went over her head that Tamara was kind of shading her. But Teddy's like, well, I was still trending even though I wasn't really on the episode that much or whatever. But arrivals lead to Diana confessing she has never been to a store opening and doesn't really know what she's doing, which in this case is so unrelatable that it's almost relatable and makes me think of the whole idea around the whole spectrum of wealth, similar to the political spectrum, or people call it the compass sometimes, which is it's more of a circle where extreme ends of the spectrum actually have a lot more in common, but just for different reasons than we think. And this also goes back to kind of confirming her nouveau riche or nouveau riche comment last week of she went from poor to rich so fast there was no in between. But this was followed by Diana subtly shading Kyle's store and clothes, saying The clothing's really nice. It's something I would probably wear around my house, basically saying it looks like loungewear is what the way I interpreted that, but maybe she didn't mean it that way. I don't know. After Kyle's speech and difficulty cutting this cheap-looking flamingo flower ribbon, Sutton and Dorit are catching up, where Dorit shares her recent struggles post-robbery, and Garcelle and Kyle join the conversation to Sutton apologizing to Dorit for her comments. And even though I don't like when someone gives disclaimers before commenting instead of just saying what they want to say, and however it comes out, it comes out, Dorit seems to be taking this as a genuine apology. And I actually thought it did come off sincere, and Sutton is kind of awkward, but I think has a good heart, and this will come up a little bit later, but I was glad Kyle and Garcelle were present for this apology so that we have witnesses in case this comes up in any funny business later on. But on the other side of the store, Erika is hobnobbing with her girl crush Diana Jenkins, and they are all joking about Diana paying for Crystal's items that night, but Erika seems more desperate and serious about it while trying to play it off as a joke of, I need someone in my life to buy this ring because I can't afford it right now. And Diana's like, you don't need to convince me. I can afford it. I can afford this whole store to buy it, basically. But I hope Diana still has her guard up, because what does Erika get out of someone in her life having this ring? Maybe Erika was hoping Diana would volunteer to actually buy it for her. That interaction was followed up by Kyle saying this project is more about her being creative, which makes her happy, followed by Sutton joking with Kyle about being stabbed in the back. I think Sutton was referring to Kyle basically telling all the details of their conversation at the rental house a few episodes back with all the ladies, but I'm glad they put that soundbite in from Kyle, because on the surface, it looks like this is just a vanity project for someone with a lot of cash to blow, this whole store thing, but I guess not. I guess it's a creative outlet, even though it appears also that Kyle is just a partner with Shahida, that's all her clothing line. I don't know. Back at Kyle's house for a post-party dinner, Diana and Kyle continue getting to know each other, but it continues on a rough foot with Kyle and Diana arguing over the date range for a Leo versus a Virgo as far as astrological stuff goes. Maybe they were confusing the sun and the moon and the rising. Diana is then being a proud mom, sharing videos of her daughter standing on her own, which she shared that she actually still has 6 embryos that she can use, 3 girls and 3 boys, and she kind of, I don't know if she was joking, she said she wants to carry all 6 of them to become humans, where Kyle shares the only thing getting her more kids in her life are grandkids. And there was some more breaking of the fourth wall when Rinna shared about her experience at baby showers and how, like Erika Jayne, I'm a good time. And we got some behind the scenes video from social media of Rinna dancing on tables at executive producer of Housewives and Watch What Happens Live host Andy Cohen's baby shower. So this scene to me showed how much Diana cares about her family, and she also said the dogs and pets in her life relative to all the stuff and the things and the houses. And we saw this exemplified last week in her intro, where we saw her with her son, Asher, her fiance, and then her 1-year-old daughter, appearing to show a very solid family unit around that baby. But also I wonder if the embryos are hers and Asher's together. I don't know what the deal is with that. They, on the little Chiron or lower third, they said that the daughter is both hers and Asher's. So maybe they did 7 embryos or however many, because she's getting older and they wanted to make sure. Or she had her eggs frozen a long time ago and then they had Asher inseminate them or whatever, make the embryos out of his sperm. But anyways, Lisa invites Kyle's dogs to go eat next to her on the couch, but then is surprised they have no problem eating off her plate. Now, I will say, poorly behaved animals are kind of annoying, and one of my pet peeves when I'm a guest at someone's house. I don't think I'm the only one. Let me know what you thought of that, and I don't really think it's a personality trait or a quirk or something I'd be bragging about. But Garcelle goes right into wanting everyone to talk to Sutton while she is there, clearly wanting to squash this ASAP, where Kyle quickly says, well, I said everything to Sutton's face I said to everyone else, attempting to weasel out of this, but she can't help herself and being the center of attention and drama and storyline. Sutton then continues saying, well, I've been as genuine as I can be, and Kyle with a smirk says, oh, I know, followed by Dorit confirming the genuine apology in front of the entire group. Kyle seems to want to keep this going, but Sutton apologizes again, also explaining to everyone the power of boundaries following her experience after her father's death of not wanting people to come over because she not only had a 9-month-old, but she didn't want to be a hostess at that time, citing that reason for not wanting to go over to Dorit the next morning. I'll have more on that in a moment in reference to the never before seen scene from last episode, but then the newbie Diana steps in saying, well, I don't know Sutton that well, but she is clumsy with words and behaviors. She comes off really weird and wrong, does things and says things that really hurt people. Where Diana cites her first meeting at Harry's birthday last episode with an Erika, yep, thrown in there, of course. But even though they tried to trick us before the commercial break into thinking Diana was just going to lay into Sutton, Diana ends her comments pointing out the redeeming factors also she has seen in Sutton, including willingness to change throughout many apologies acknowledging her mistakes. Before we continue with Crystal getting involved in this whole thing, a few thoughts. First, of course, Erika was loving Diana pointing out the flaws of Sutton because Erika is going to support anything remotely negative said about Sutton, especially from Diana, who Erika has made very clear wants to get in the pants of to get closer to her closets and homes and planes. And that's based on only what Erika has given us to work with so far. So also Diana does seem to be coming in strong with this group, especially also last episode at Harry's birthday. But I think it is smart for her to kind of ride the fence on most of these issues so far until she gets to know the ladies a little bit better. Kyle then counters Sutton claiming she was empathetic to Dorit as Crystal is saying under her breath to Garcelle, gosh, there's so much hypocrisy going around here. And Crystal confesses that telling someone they feel wrong is gaslighting and makes her distrusting in a friendship. Thankfully, Crystal then speaks up about her experience last year when everyone in the group was telling her description of what happened with her and Sutton and in Lake Tahoe with the whole coat and naked scene thing as violated was wrong. Crystal is trying to say that this is a similar situation. Kyle says, though, well, I did think your term violated was extreme, and Sutton saying her fire was related to a designer was rude, and neither of those compare to Dorit's situation. Crystal then says, well, you asked me to give Sutton the benefit of the doubt last year, but you guys aren't giving her that right now, and this is very triggering. Where Kyle says in her confessional, Crystal is being overdramatic, chalking it up to her being a millennial, always complaining, telling Crystal to calm down. This is very ripe coming from Kyle, who clearly has a pattern this season of just completely being unself-aware like many others in the group. Of course, she's one of 3 members of Team Rules for Thee, Not For Me, including Lisa Rinna and Erika Jayne Girardi. But considering Kyle is an actress and most of her time on the show has been a compilation of her dramatic facial expressions and over-the-top reactions, Kyle can probably take a few seats on this one. Dorit then jumps in saying she is having trouble connecting what happened to her with Crystal's situation last year. And I kind of agree with Dorit, but I think what Crystal is more talking about is the principle and being consistent in that, because if you have the principle of people should be able to feel how they feel or whatnot, then it should be applied to all situations without exception. But Kyle confesses she is confused on why Crystal is making this all about her. Well, newsflash, Kyle, all of you are making it about you in some way, shape, or form. Garcelle then steps in again, trying to defend Crystal and Sutton without excusing their behavior, where Kyle is getting mad, continuing to say she is right and will not apologize. I think Kyle is realizing that her game of chess is being exposed, but Sutton continues sharing the lesson she learned with Crystal last year of respecting someone's feelings, giving an in for Erika to, of course, make this about herself, or redirecting the conversation to talk about her feud with Sutton from last year, with an under-the-breath comment from Garcelle, who is speaking for all of us again, saying, oh, here we go again, where Erika references what happened in that exact room last year after Erika left crying her eyes out when the whole LA Times article was about to be released. She says, you do realize what you said last year wasn't true and has been proven untrue, where Sutton confesses, Erika has not been exonerated, but everyone seems to just be playing along with her delusions at this point that she has no legal issues anymore. With Crystal still crying in the corner seat of the couch, Sutton defends herself, saying all I was doing was asking questions on things I thought were not adding up, alluding to lying but not necessarily calling Erika a liar. Erika then continues saying, I feel really good about how I treated you and I will do it 1000% again. I mean, she uses a B word and some other things, but You all know how I feel about someone saying I'm going to give more than 100% from the Orange County reunion recaps a few weeks ago. But Erika keeps going, saying, you, Sutton, have had a problem with all these girls here, and you are the common denominator, so you must be the problem. If things were going well for Erika Jayne, she would not have to keep rehashing the past, especially with Sutton, unless Erika saying she is Sutton's only storyline is actually her projecting on Sutton that Sutton is also Erika's only storyline because Erika doesn't want to talk about the real stuff going on, the legal stuff. Lisa Rinna then steps in to actually make a good point this time, saying everyone's feelings are valid, but our friend Dorit was the one who had this happen to her. Although I agree with Rinna, it doesn't seem that that standard is being equally upheld. But Dorit and Kyle then ask for clarity on Crystal's comments here, who is now starting to shut down because she thinks her feelings aren't valid to the other girls, doubling down on expressing her triggers as she tells Dorit to get real, that is what is happening when Dorit denies not validating Crystal's feelings, followed by Dorit asking Crystal if she is out of her effing mind. She really screamed it at her, similar to the last reunion of Dorit yelling, "Let me finish Garcelle!" Dorit continues saying to Crystal, this seems to be coming out of left field, and I agree, but it appears Crystal is the type of person that I know a few in my life that they let everything build up and then it all just kind of floods out. I think it may also be that she didn't get to speak up as much at the reunion as she wanted to. And mind you, this was being filmed as the reunion for last season was airing for us. And maybe she was finally seen, maybe she did speak up at the reunion and it got cut out and she just realized it during this time, and this was her first chance to get it all out of her system. The episode ends with Crystal heading back to the hotel in the car with Sutton and Diana after Garcelle continued to defend Crystal and Sutton, as Crystal says this doesn't feel like a safe space and doesn't think the other girls will validate her feelings unless they understand them, where Dorit says safe space is a poor choice of words considering what she just went through. And I will agree with Kyle and Dorit on this, that Crystal's choice of words came off as kind of a pick-me, woke vibe, if you will. And of course, Kelly and Rick agreed with me on that too, which is not a surprise there. But in the car, Crystal fills Diana in on her eating disorder revelation from last year and how this invalidated feeling from the group is very intense, where Diana leaves off saying you should never feel that way with friends, to an agreement from Sutton. But back at the house, Kyle is confused with what just happened because she thought everything was hunky-dory with Crystal, another Easter egg ode to Kathy Hilton, where Erika somehow becomes the voice of reason, as shockingly pointed out by Lisa Rinna, one of the few self-aware moments from her and this cast, and the side of the cast really, from the season so far. Erika said it was clear the truth came out tonight after sweeping a lot of things under the rug for a long time. Let's not judge Crystal or try to interpret what she's saying. All right, so some final thoughts to this dramatic end of the night, but of course some levity there at the very end, before fact-checking Sutton in reference to the last episode. First, the end of this scene was funny to see, and actually see them acknowledge the absurdity of the situation, considering the dynamics of the group for the past few years plus. But I'm just wondering what made Erika land back on this earthly reality that most of us live in from her planet delusional. Just a question. As far as Crystal's part in the conversation, I like that she is speaking up for herself. I think that's always great. The problem is it comes off as weak, which will have the others in the group trying to take advantage of. But I also don't believe what she said in the car ride, saying she doesn't need her feelings validated, because this entire last part of the scene where she interjected herself was her trying to get her feelings validated after not feeling validated for a year plus. Maybe that was her defeated self-talking in the car, grasping for any support from the others, and kind of lowered her standard at that point and really didn't mean what she was saying. But her calling out others for gaslighting as she was gaslighting the groups, interjecting herself, saying how she was feeling, and then saying, oh, you guys don't really validate me, so I'm going to stop talking to you. You can't validate my feelings now. And then going in the car saying, I didn't want my valid. Like, all of that could be seen as gaslighting too. Finally, I'm still trying to figure out what the benefit of ganging up on Sutton is, other than she is a threat to the other girls in the group. Unfortunately, I think many of those girls in the group chose their fate last year with the handling of Erika's life imploding. And instead of admitting any wrong and course correcting, are doubling down and grasping for air, similar to Erika, in the form of attacking anyone not on their side, as the Titanic named Erika Jayne is sinking after hitting Iceberg Tom and his associates with Captain PK and Engine Room Dorit, as Rinna is enjoying her last cocktail, watching Kyle put on this dramatic show in the lounge because they know there was no more room on the lifeboats for them to escape. Now to the deleted never before scene from last episode that aired right before this new episode aired. And it added some confusion to Sutton's claims this episode. Now in the deleted scene, Sutton says she was disappointed she was not invited to the morning after robbery meeting at Dorit's. Even if she wouldn't have been able to make it, she said she would have been nice to be invited. Of course, Kyle says, well, this was a last minute thing. I didn't even think of you in this. Why are you making it about yourself? Blah, blah, blah. But this, to me, is a discrepancy from what Sutton said this episode of not wanting to go over to Dorit's right away because she didn't think it would be helpful in the matters from her own experience. But of course, in this deleted scene, Sutton also calls out Kyle for being mad at the way she reacted because Sutton didn't react the way they wanted to or the way they did, which does validate what we've discussed. Maybe this part of the scene was deleted because it was kind of a wash between Kyle and Sutton based on what's already been going on and didn't really add much and it would only confuse the viewers. I don't know. But then again, they showed it in the deleted scene special episode right before this episode. So I don't know what they were thinking with that. But anyways, on the ratings front, live viewership in the US rebounded to 990,000 this week from last week's 940,000, although it is trending lower than last season's rebound from episode 2 to 3 from 900,000 to 1.07 million. And although the Bravo viewership is in US viewership only, for you data nerds out there, luckily my channels that I do these recaps and reacts on report worldwide statistics. So like I said in the intro, last week alone, viewers from 43 countries spanning 6 continents tuned in to recap related videos for episode 2 alone on just under 100,000 impressions, bringing our season total to over 100,000 impressions and counting worldwide after only 2 episodes. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode 3 recap with me. I hope you will join me in the next one. And as always, click around the channel for more. Thank you for having me in your online life, and I will see you in the next one.